A new work of art was unveiled today to honor one historic local figure. The Cole Land Transportation Museum held their first annual Founders Day, celebrating the life and legacy of museum's founder, Galen Cole. Cole was a distinguished World War II veteran, served as mayor of Bangor, and was known for his statewide philanthropy, successful businesses, love of historic transportation, and passion for preserving knowledge to pass down to new generations. The community was invited to celebrate Cole's life and to see the new sculpture in his honor for the first time. Speakers included Senator Susan Collins and Cole's family, as well as a musical accompaniment by the Bangor Band and Mallet Brothers. We heard from organizers and the artist himself to explain the significance.
Galen has made such a big impact on our community because of what he's done. He was so generous. He gave thousands and thousands of dollars in scholarships, programs to help children read, programs for veterans, and all of this impacts our community here in the state of Maine. So he's helping people who need a helping hand even after he's passed. He passed in 2020 and he's still helping people today because of that legacy.
Bronze is a very classical material and it's still used today. And one of the incredible things about bronze is it's not ferrous like iron. It won't corrode. It's a very traditional material. You know, paintings will fade and many, like marble, can crumble and fall apart, but bronze will last for thousands of years. As I learned more about Galen Cole and just kind of the power behind his legacy and how important he was to the community, it felt very appropriate to use a material like bronze to really kind of solidify that.
The Cole Land Transportation Museum reopens for this season tomorrow. For more information, visit their website at colemuseum.org.